Linux Foundation website. And if you are a member of the Linux Foundation, wherever your company is, then you can reach out to Andy Updegrove for further guidance and advice. So may I just get like a show of hands for those who can do that on the Zoom chat? Sort of how many are kind of new to OpenChain or to this working group? Welcome, Hank. So for those of you who are new, the OpenChain sort of mission and vision is all about building trust in the supply chain, with the idea that outcomes can be cheaper and faster and more efficient for everyone. Over the last few years, 5 years, OpenChain has created 2 ISO standards. The first one is around open source license compliance, ISO 5230. And we know that sort of thousands of companies have signed up to this standard, which is starting to build trust in our ecosystem. And a few years later, a new ISO standard was created, ISO 18974, which is OpenChain's security assurance standard. And both of these ISO standards are really looking at the high-level processes, and they're kind of simple, effective for companies of all shapes and sizes. And they're freely available to those who want to use it in our community, and they're developed by those in the community. I will just give one anecdote here that happened in my working life. We started working with a new partner, and my role in my company is dealing with open source license compliance. And I found out from the new supplier that they were ISO 5230 conformant, like my company is. And that immediately gave me confidence that they were going to be following certain processes that sort of enable to initially build trust between myself and this other supplier. And the idea with these standards was it would broaden that concept throughout the whole ecosystem. We'd all build trust by following the same processes and having the same tools. These guides and these ISO standards are also supporting existing and new regulation. For example, these ISO standards were available before the US executive order or NIST or CISA that required the use of SBOMs, and both 5230 and 18974 require those use of SBOMs, and they're flexible enough to meet these standards of the executive order. Equally, with the Cyber Resilience Act in the EU, there was a requirement for record keeping, and both of these ISO standards again came out before the Cyber Resilience Act, but have this concept of record keeping being required for good compliance. And after looking at kind of open source licensing, and then the security standards, OpenChain are looking at other things like SBOMs, but we also thought about, well, what about AI? Could that be next? And as a result, the AI working group, as it now is, was set up. We meet twice a month, usually the first Tuesday of the month, although January is slightly different. And we do 2 meetings, one in a Europe and America time zone, and then one in a Europe-Asia time zone. And these are usually repeated one after each other. So going through the history of the AI working group, which built up to this guide that I will share with you shortly. In December 2023, a group of folks from the OpenChain community, we all had a sort of a meeting of the minds in the Japan Open Source Compliance Summit, where we thought maybe we can do something with AI here and create some form of guidance which can build trust in the ecosystem. We had our first meeting in January 2024, a year ago now, and sort of 2 years ago now, and our goal was to establish an industry-wide agreement on AI management and a set of core principles that would sort of foster the trust in AI. And at the time, we thought, well, let's discuss things like ethics and transparency and bias to see if we could some form of consensus. As the year progressed, we reviewed other regulation like ISO 42001, the EU AI Act, and the NIST framework. And thank you to those people that contributed on those discussions. As a result of that, we were able to pinpoint some primary challenges that the industry faces in implementing regulation. And through our open dialogues that we've had in the meetings, we were able to explore AI compliant solutions to try and address these issues. And in certain circumstances, in certain instances, we kind of deferred decisions until technology evolves or there were more assurances available. And finally, we identified some key challenges that we thought we might be able to work on and address. So having an AI standard or guide we thought was worthwhile, but at the time we debated whether it would just be for open source programs or would it be for proprietary systems as well. We wanted to include things like transparency and explainability of the systems, which is required in certain regulations. Again, we didn't quite know how to handle that and capture it. Would we have things on transparency or not? At the time, we discussed the impact of climate change. LLMs clearly use a significant amount of energy and certainly higher compared with typical computing. Was this a concern that OpenChain wants to get involved in terms of defining processes behind the impact of climate change? And then finally, the issues surrounding copyright and license compliance in testing and validating and training data sets. And this is really what OpenChain is known for. So we were building on that. My next slide, go to it. We took a sort of conceptual approach to determining key processes in what quality AI compliance program would look like. And there were a variety of different areas we wanted to look at. For example, we should have a process which defines policy. We should have a process which can define the creation of AI bonds, the ownership of AI bonds, the inputs, outputs. We should look into that. We should define processes that look for country of origins and the transparency aspects of dealing with AI models. So documenting and reviewing things that would enable us to be transparent, inform people that the model, it was a model and not a human. We'd have identify the use case of the model. We wanted to have a look at IP rights and other things about having processes to review privacy or sustainability or bias. I'll be honest, I created this slide about 6 weeks ago, and I can't remember the reasons behind the colouring. So apologies for that. I think it was more things that we had agreement on, and then other things that we discussed at length. One of the key takeaways that we had from defining all of this was really about our model cards. This is clearly documentation around the output of a model or using a model. And we thought this might be a good framework to work towards, which would certainly highlight things around its transparency. When we discussed model cards, and we did so at length in kind of May time of last year, we also touched on the formats of model cards, SPDX or CycloneDX or Hugging Face or others. And we believe that although we've got good friends in SPDX, that OpenChain should be flexible, and sort of recommending a certain format probably wasn't within the remit of OpenChain, although there are definitely connections with certain communities. We wanted to sort of have a comprehensive list of what would be captured in a model card. So Hugging Face has a long list of relevant fields, SPDX does as well. And we also wanted to highlight, well, are certain things compulsory or not compulsory? And at the time, we didn't know. So that was kind of our review of when we looked at model cards in May, and I think the June session as well. around July, we did a deep dive into ISO 42001. We actually spent 3 different working group sessions on this ISO standard. This ISO standard looks at sort of controls and around AI management. And as you can see from this slide, we pinpointed certain key elements of ISO 42001, which was, I think at the time, a standard that was clearly important to the development of our guide. At about this time, we realized that there's a lot more guides going on and ISO standards coming out. And so we found a gap in the market around AI SBOM compliance. And we had a sort of discussion around SBOMs with the OpenChain SBOM group at the end of July. And then shortly after, we invited the SPDX community to come in and discuss their AI bombs as well. So this slide kind of summarizes our outputs of ISO 42001. What we did over sort of in July time as well, we not in August, but we took ISO 42001 and we took the OpenChain ISO standard 5230, and we compared and contrast the different sections. And as you can see from this slide, with the exception of 1 or 2 lines, there is a really good overlap between ISO 42001 and OpenChain. And as I go through, again, we could see good overlap between the different ISO standards for managing AI and managing open source license compliance. So around this time, we kind of realized that there was definitely other guidelines, ISO standards out there that we could, there would be a foundation to a new guide. And then we invited Karen and Goup, and I think Karen's on the call, to present some work on SPDX 3.0. They've got a really good white paper. The QR code's in the top right-hand corner. And I'll share these slides around after, and you can get that QR code again, which summarizes sort of a variety of different aspects within sort of that community. They realize that AI systems sort of combine software and data and models, and the risks can certainly be more than just the license compliance. It's data provenance, privacy, model behavior. And traditional SBOMs didn't really pick up on all these details. Certainly SPDX 3.0 added the AI and dataset profiles, which augmented the fields available through SPDX on AI bombs. And as AI bombs become more widely used, it's important that we capture things like the model types and the training information and the energy usage and explainability and so on. And SPDX provides a format to capture these information, which sort of ticks the box in the transparency when we're sharing things in the community. I'm just going to pause there. I noticed Karen's on the call. Anything you want to add, Karen, that you remember from that session, or anything you want to touch on about SPDX?
The only thing that I will add, that was a good summary. Thank you, Matthew. I didn't even know we said all that, but the SPDX is about to launch 3.1, and there's a whole bunch of new things, especially for AI and agentic AI type solutions. So maybe a session in future weeks might be something we should come in and present on.
That sounds really good, Karen. Look forward to that. And the SPDX AI profile, they meet weekly. Do you want to just share information on that in case anyone's interested in joining?
Sure. The AI and dataset profile is on Wednesdays, every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Please come join us. If you can't, just join us on Slack or our mailing list and ask any questions. But we're in the process of just starting a white paper on SPDX 3.1. So hopefully we can circulate that soon too.
Great to hear. And when you do, I will update these slides so we've got the latest paper. Okay. So, as I pointed out, around this time, we realized that we wanted an AI SBOM guide. We agreed on the objectives and the sort of direction and future of the work. We want to really focus on the license compliance and avoid redundancies between AI bombs, model cards, and data sheets. Just to put that into context, this is a slide from Dave Marr that he presented. The concept of a data card, really, when we have these AI systems, we have multiple data sources. That data source will become a data set. There's a data card which highlights information relevant to that data set, which may or may not include things like license information, provenance, and so on, what that data set is all about. Equally with a model, which we identify here in this box, there's an AI model, sorry, this is an AI system in this box. We've got the AI model part of it. There's the training data set, it's inference with prompt and responses from a user. And as a result of that, there is an AI model card that defines relevant information for the AI system. This is all about sort of transparency inventory, but kind of the sum of these two plus additional information, we can sort of create an AI SBOM. So the model card really highlights sort of what the model does and how it performs, but that AI SBOM is to really show how it was built and what's inside. And so we wanted to highlight what does good look like, and sort of spoiler alert, we have created an AI guide. Thank you for putting comments in the chat. So we have created an AI SBOM compliance guide of what we believe good, I guess, looks like in this scenario here. So go across. So we were sort of confident that people who were working on AI projects were likely to be trained and aware of their own policies and governance, but we wanted to ensure that this was happening. Equally, if you're confident that the process is followed, to ensure that sort of we've got accountable people, and that also builds trust. If we've got clear documentation that was peer reviewed, that would also build trust. And we picked up on other things from the license compliance, that if you can contact somebody who knows a bit about the model and the history, that also builds trust. So coming back to that vision on the first slide about building trust in the ecosystem, that is key. And if you're working with partners on AI systems, if you know they've been trained and they've got good documentation and people are accountable for their systems, then again, that builds trust and is what we're looking for. We broke down the guide into a list of categories here. So transparency, compliance, risk mitigation, interoperability. We really want people to adopt processes around these different criteria. We've never been explicit of what these should look like. We can suggest things in OpenChain, but we try to put a concept in that you have a policy on OpenAI and on AI models, and you're being open about it, but you don't, but OpenChain has never said, well, this is what your policy should be. As long as you have a policy, then that is sufficient, partly because each company is different, each entity is different. So we have the sections for compliance. We've also got implementation here, how we adopt processes for generating, updating AI SBOMs, how they integrate with existing flows. We want to ensure traceability, and ideally, but we haven't recommended it yet, we try and have things as automated as possible. So there are reviews and flows are happening.
Use my phone for a call.
No, it's fine. I mean, I just, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Thanks.
Hi, Jelaine, can you just go on mute? Is that possible?
Oh, yeah. Sorry, but I thought I was. Hello.
Hi, Jelaine. And then just finally, just to kind of summarize, OpenChain, the AI SBOM guide isn't really about sort of creating another spreadsheet. It's all about building trust in the ecosystem with AI systems. And now, in a moment, I will just open up the guide and we can have a look at it. But whilst I find that, I will pause for any questions or comments from people. People find that summary useful?
Yeah, Matthew, this is Karen. I raised my hand, but maybe you can't see it.
Oh, sorry.
No,
I'm
no,
getting that.
no problem. I mean, this was very useful, and I definitely am going to go reread this guide that you're going to be presenting. But there's a couple of things that you may or may not be aware of. ISO 42001 is actually building a developer handbook or implementation guide. I would love to get this group somehow involved in that and see where the synergy is between this guide and what they're already doing, or maybe we can incorporate some of this work into the ISO. It's a new standard guide. It's 42,000, and I'm going to say 5 or 6. It's one of those two, but I can get that information to you. And then the second thing is SBOMs are evolving as we go, even Cyclone DX and SPDX. So it was initially a software bill of materials. With the entry of SPDX 3.0, it's now documenting an AI system, is what I'm going to say. So it's more than just the laundry lists of licenses and dependencies, et cetera, et cetera. But with 3.1, and when we come in and present about it, this is more what we're calling a knowledge graph. So it's more for regulations than it is for transparency and whatnot. You now have a graph of all that is in your AI system. But it's now going to be able to document systems of systems. So that's our ultimate goal, is to be able to have a graph that you can go and ask questions of the graph that has been built for your AI system of systems. And it can actually tell you the answers, like, are you using this package, and what version are you using? What are your licenses that are being used in your AI systems, so that you can actually pull the information from the SBOMs now. So again, just to highlight, it is a moving target, and both Cyclone DX and SPDX are moving in that direction to be able to document systems of systems. So that's it.
That is great to hear, Karen, and I'd certainly be interested in getting more involved in ISO 42005. I guess it would be down to OpenChain board to work out how we can integrate in there. But as an individual contributor, I can certainly get involved.
Yeah, so let me get you some of the details that you can circulate to the group. I can actually get, the chair of that working group to maybe come into one of these meetings as well to share. We're working with that group. That developer handbook is actually working with Linux Foundation. What are they called? A Common AI and Data Set. I think Gen AI. I don't know if you're aware of that group. It's not OpenSSF, but it's an AI one. So there's already established.
It's called Generative AI Commons.
Thank you, Art. I can never remember this.
Generative AI Commons.
They're already working with the developer handbooks, so maybe we can piggyback on sort of their relationship and their methodologies of how they're providing feedback there. But yeah, let me get you some more information in your board, and the team can decide if it's of interest to you or not.
Thanks, Karen. I appreciate it. And Iris has put a comment in the chat saying Iris thinks it's 42,003.
Oh, is it 3, Iris? Okay, thank you. I can never remember. All I know is it's called the Implementer's Guide. But thank you, because Iris and Art are definitely in those too. So it's not just myself that you can reach out to.
Glad to hear. Any other comments so far? We had a few thumbs up. Thank you. People found it useful. Just looking at the chat. Andrew Katz says, Karen, that's really helpful summary. Are you able to share a link to the draft guide for 42,001 or details of how to get involved? Yes, I think you'll do that. I don't know if you want to send that to me, Karen, and I can send it round to the group when I follow up afterwards. I tried to share my screen twice. Can you see my screen? Can someone just give me a thumbs up?
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Great, thank you so much. So this is the OpenChain AI SBOM guide, compliance guide. For those of you who've been here for the whole journey of OpenChain, you may notice some similarities with this and ISO 5230 because we've kind of built off that. We can happily go through this guide now. There are sort of 10 sections. I will just highlight sort of each of them and rationales behind it. And then we can either open it up for discussion or we can decide how we progress with the rest of the call. So this is available on GitHub. I will send this around. It's freely available. It's still a guide. It's still version 1.0. We're looking at kind of next iterations and how we improve this guide. But if I scroll down in the 10 sections, here we go. It's a bit of an introduction of why and highlights the sort of standards that we've built off. So 5230, which is the OpenChain standard, 42,001 we discussed, and then the SPDX standard as well. So look, this is some definitions. I'm just going to get to section 3. We actually spent a bit of time defining what AI is. And we defined this 12 months ago. And when we reflected on it in December, we think this is painfully out of date. And I think the decision is we're going to try and coalesce with other industry defined standards of artificial intelligence. But here we go, the guidance. So as we said, this guide to build trust in the ecosystem between two, say, entities when they're dealing with open models. That a company should have a policy to define how we govern an AI system bill of materials. Again, as I highlighted before, we don't specify what that policy should be, but there should be a policy and that should be communicated and informed by business strategy, legal requirements, and so on. Again, it can be dependent on your company or the interaction between two companies, about relevant jurisdictions, and so on, based on the use case. Second area is competence, that we should have a variety of different roles. The roles should be identified and the corresponding responsibilities of those roles acknowledged. We highlighted a few different areas: governance, security, safety, privacy, development, supply management. We realized that legal probably should be spelt out here. We kind of, I think, initially put legal in with governance, but I think updated versions will probably have legal in there. So we're identifying people that are responsible for dealing with AI bill of materials. Then we want evidence that people are aware of this policy and the relevant objectives and the relevant programs. Again, for those of you who know 5230, you may see some stark correlations between that and this one. But this all seemed to make some quite sensible business logic if we're trying to build trust. Again, different programs can be governed at different levels. This is very similar to 5230, but a program scope should be defined. Again, if we know a model is going to be evolved, developed, trained, etc., if we know that a company is defining what that looks like, then we know that certain thresholds are being met, people are being aware of what they're being asked to do, and again, builds trust. 3.5, we talk about license obligations. It's expanded from the previous ISO standard because here we have things like code, weights, data sets for training, testing, verification, etc. Clearly, a lot more IP is going into a model than, say, one piece of software, but the concept is still the same. It's still somebody else's IP. We want to check we have a license to use it. And so a process shall exist for reviewing the licenses. It doesn't say it is acceptable, it's not. It's just that a process shall be to review the AI system components. Moving on, transparency obligations. We debated a lot on whether we should have anything about transparency in here. At the time when we first said, we said no, we shouldn't, and then we moved to we should have some think around transparency. Again, we're not highlighting what transparency should be or defined as, but we should have a process for reviewing transparency obligations and regulations. So if a data set comes with a license that requires you to acknowledge it, then that process occurs. Equally, if jurisdiction X comes out with new regulation to say you need to be more transparent in a certain way, then that happens. So again, if we're looking at two different entities sharing information of an AI system with an AI bill of materials, we know that the receiving party, from the receiving party, the person delivering the AI model, should be aware of regulations around transparency. And the process should be in place to effectively respond to external AI SBOMs. Again, if we're creating AI SBOMs based on models, people should be able to reach out and question and challenge that rather than it just be a faceless sheet of information. Having that way to identify that a person or a group of people or an email alias is being reviewed, that people can ask questions of, we felt this would be helpful and build trust. Moving on, we should have a program effectively resourced so people have time to do it, adequate funding, adequate time is being put in place. Again, we wanted to highlight that to build trust, things are being done properly and not being sort of, appropriate time was not being given to deliver a reasonable task. And then the AI system bill of materials. At the start, we spent quite some time of maybe we should be defining what is in the AI system bill of materials. And then our good friends at SPDX presented and produced something that was already sufficient. Then we'd already gone to Hugging Face again and identified that adding another format for an AI bill of materials is not what the community wanted. It's certainly not what OpenChain was designed to do. And so we leverage the SPDX format. And here we say that, we should use, create an SBOM in a reasonable format that third parties are aware of. And then finally, the governance. An organization shall have a governance framework to look at AI for their policies and practices, looking at latest legislation. EU AI Act became more prevalent last year. There's processes from Japan, things coming from China, things coming out all the time. And we wanted to ensure that an organization has somebody at least keeping an eye out for different legislation coming out and how that may impact those working in AI systems. And the next iteration of this guide, we're going to sort of remove some of these things because this will probably become wildly out of date as we progress. And that was it. The expectation was to keep this quite lightweight at the start. If organizations can comply with those 10 principles or points, then they can say that they're conformant with this AI SBOM OpenChain guide. The next steps, we are looking at promotion of this, which is the reason why I'm talking to you wonderful people today. We've presented it at a number of different events, and I would hope that you can proliferate this concept within your network and see what we can do with this guide. Within OpenChain, we're reviewing this guide to see whether we want to update it and then make it into a more formal specification. Where it progresses after that, still to be confirmed by sort of the OpenChain community. But we reached consensus. It took lots of discussion, lots of debate, lots of iterations. It was open to the public for further comments, which we refined further. But that is the guide. It's available free to anyone to download and review at their leisure. But the ask to all of you is to review it and consider either adopting it or promoting it or discussing it when and where relevant with your networks. And that's all I wanted to say and share on that point today. What are people's comments and thoughts?
So Matthew, this is Karen again. Are you guys planning on moving it to ISO to get an ISO number associated with this guide?
That still is to be determined. You can clearly see with OpenChain, we have 2 ISO standards, so there's certainly a possibility.
Right.
Or we haven't sort of gone to the board with that is what our direction is, and do we support the board? So that would be certainly next steps, but it could be that we carry on from a guide to a spec to an ISO standard, or it could be that we keep it at a guide. I have no knowledge of the way. We'll just see how this year evolves, but it could be that we go into the direction of an ISO standard.
Okay. The reason I ask is because SPDX 3.0 is in the process or the churn of ISO review right now, with the intent to have that one approved by ISO. And it would be nice to have this guide sort of also go hand in hand with it. Would be a nice announcement from a Linux Foundation point of view. But yeah, so I'll watch it and learn, and if I can help, let me know. But yeah, this was great. I mean, I'm going to be promoting it right, left, and center now.
Wonderful day, Karen. Just so everyone's aware, the executive director of OpenChain sort of left at the end of last year. So we are looking for a new executive director. The reason I highlight that is I guess he had a lot of knowledge on getting things through the ISO standard process, and therefore, Karen, if we need to learn I don't understand the process of getting things through the ISO standards, so maybe we have to leverage other LF knowledgeable people to enable this.
Okay, no, great. And then, I mean, I don't want to monopolize everything, but is there a plan to do a blog? Because I'm giving a presentation at FOSDEM, and I would like to add, some kind of information about this new guide in that presentation.
You certainly can, and you certainly can promote it. The QR code that I put halfway through the slide deck, that goes to this page here, or it doesn't, it goes to a slightly different page with information about the background of this guide. That may be a good point, certainly with FOSDEM just in a couple of weeks off. I don't think we'd be able to get a new guide through, a new blog through, but that may be a good place to start. If you can promote it, put it in your slides and get people to scan that QR code. Thanks, Karen.
I mean, if anybody doesn't have any more questions, I do have one more. And that is, we've been doing a lot of looking at what Hugging Face has up there, particularly around licensings of the AI and the models. And we're discovering that over 70% of the packages that are up on Hugging Face don't actually have a license information up there. Do you talk about that in the guide in any way? that, like, is it a must-have license? Or you're recommending that there's a license? Because that's part of the problem. You can't do a lot of conflict and, you know, ask questions of what licenses are you using if the information isn't even up on Hugging Face. Just
you make
curious.
a good point here. We normally focus on license compliance and license obligations from an inbound point of view. We haven't really focused on the outbound point of view. So, you know, if someone were to create a model or refine a model and put it back on Hugging Face, I don't think we capture, you know, you should have a process to ensure that you have a license before you put it out on these community sites. So that seems like a reasonable upgrade or improvement.
No, great, thank you.
Right. Is there anything else anyone wants to ask or find out? Let's have some more thumbs up. Do people find that helpful and useful? It was a loaded question. I was expecting to see lots of them. Anyone willing to sort of carry on sort of by attending these monthly calls so we can refine and develop this guide further? Thumbs up. Glad to hear. So when I share the slides around, I'll put the link to how you kind of sign up. So welcome to those new people. Welcome to the community. Look forward to hearing from you in future meetings. I propose that we close the call unless anyone else has anything to add. Hearing none, lovely to chat with you all today. Have a good rest of your day and we'll speak soon.
Excellent.
Bye.
Thanks, Matthew. Much appreciated.
Thanks, everyone.
Okay, bye, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Bye.